Hello, and welcome to Making Sense of It. This program is our gift to you from the Glasser Institute for Choice Theory. I'm Mona Duncan, your moderator, and each week we have a speaker talking about one of Dr. Glasser's concepts and how they use it, and maybe you can take it and employ it in your life and your work and life in general. Our speaker today is Robert Martin, and he is a teacher, and he has written a book entitled Connect and Involve. And today he's going to be sharing with us using conversation to increase learning and to build community. So welcome everyone. Robert, it's good to have you here.
Thank you.
And we're ready anytime you are.
Okay, well, let's go ahead. And do I need to share a screen, or are we already doing that?
We're already doing that.
Okay. So hello, everyone. I'm Robert Martin. I want to start my timer here so I know how long I'm speaking. This is the 12th in our series, and this morning we're going to be talking about conversation as a way to connect and involve with students and succeed in the classroom. So the first thing is,
Robert, we're not seeing your screen yet.
Oh.
Did you share 2 times?
I'm not seeing where we are here. Oh, okay, here we go. I'm okay. Okay, is that okay? Fine. Is that should be working now?
It's starting to. Now you have to share again so it'll come up.
Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, we'll start from the beginning. So
there you go. You got it.
Okay, thank you. And I need to move things over a little bit. So this morning we're going to be talking about conversation. We need to start with talking about a rationale first of why conversation. So the big thing is to realize that conversation develops understanding and language skills of all students. And in particular, the way language development goes, first we develop vocabulary and concepts and fund of knowledge, and then we're ready to read and write about those concepts and that fund of knowledge and that vocabulary. And this is a really hard sell to teachers, and including me. And the question is like, well, why is this? And I think I know the reason why. It's because typically we didn't get that conversation part of acquiring vocabulary and concepts and fund of knowledge in school. And we did fine. So where did we get it? Well, of course, we got it at home. But if you didn't get it at home and you come to school, then picking up the reading part and the writing part is really, really difficult. And you always feel like you're behind. So for those students to achieve, they need the conversation part at school. Now, our goal is for all students to achieve, and we want to do that in the best and the most expeditious way. And the point is that conversation works well for everyone, and this is what the research shows. All students can profit from conversation in school. And most important, some students will not succeed without it. So even if we don't really want to use it, it's a matter of like, what's the best way to bring these students who are not going to succeed? It's through structured conversation. And we'll talk about how to do that. Conversation is also the path to meeting students' needs and to establishing school as a good place. and a developing conversation. Three things that William Glasser always talked about in all of his books and all of his presentations. We need to meet students' needs, and this is something that helps us do that. And at the same time, we can do it in a way that develops understanding of big ideas. We're not going to do this as something extra to the curriculum, but something that we're integrating into the curriculum. So conversation is an opportunity to connect with students ourselves, but it's also a chance to have students connect with one another, which builds classroom community and also involves students in learning, which is really, really important for them to learn. So they're going to learn terminology, concepts, and examples through all three of the language pieces: speaking, reading, and writing. And we want to make sure that we always include all three. So we're going to focus on mastering the big ideas and learning the key skills that students need to succeed through speaking, but also through reading and writing. And, you know, even students who don't know, well, I don't know what to write. It's like, once they've spoken what they need to write, then they can write it down. My own experience was, and I did a lot of whole group conversation, mainly working with teacher education. In public school, I mainly worked with students one-on-one as a psychologist, so I was always in conversation with them that way. Conversation doesn't work all that well when students of any age don't have an agenda. In other words, they don't have things they want to talk about. So let's talk about guidelines for conversation of what works. First of all, with individual students, this is something that you want to do kind of around the edges because you don't have time to do it during the ordinary class time. What doesn't work well is a formal teacher-student relationship where people come into the class, they leave the class, and you're just up there very stern and not having a good time with them. You want to greet them as they go in, greet them as they go out. On the other hand, you don't want to be a pal to them. You want to be a friend, friendly, but still you are the teacher. They will respect you. Being friendly won't cause you to lose control. It'll work. You don't want to ask personal questions. That causes people to clam up. But if you can reflect the concerns and feelings that they have, and you can see that non-verbally just as you come in. Oh, gee, looks like you're having a rough day today. And then if they want to say something, they will. When there is a problem behavior, you want to avoid judging, criticizing, blaming, shaming, things of that sort, and focus on making a plan. Again, something that Glasser addressed in his books and in his presentations. To sum up, you want to avoid being image-centered, whether it's through praising the person or criticizing the person. You don't want to do that. You want to be problem-centered. You want to praise good work, good behavior. You want to be problem-centered about problem behavior, problem work. So always be problem-centered rather than image-centered. So to summarize, you connect through listening skills, reflecting, feelings, and understanding, and asking questions. Now on to what I think is the most important part here, and that is the small group and whole class discussion, because that's really what takes the most preparation. In my own experiences, I just found that whole class discussion was not as successful as I would have liked. I learned to use small class groups to lead into whole class discussion through conferences and workshops where, as an adult and as a teacher, the presenters would walk me through some kind of an activity and I would learn how to do it. So I always encourage people to go to conferences in your area, go to the Glasser conferences, go to workshops. Like I went to a Sid Simon workshop way, decades and decades ago. And that half day got me started on practicing those things in my own class. And that prepared people to do whole class discussion. What doesn't work is when students come unprepared, because then they don't have an agenda. When they're prepared, boy, they want to share. On the other hand, you have to plan and you have to structure, but you don't want to control the conversation. So let's look at a little of these things in detail. So first of all, I think the easiest thing you can do is I always try to plan conversations within existing lessons. It's not something apart from the curriculum. It's not part from the existing lesson. You're always incorporating it within the existing lesson. And you're using small group activities to practice the big ideas, and then moving on to the large group where you need to do this. So in general, what I have found is that many small, short groups work well with fewer but longer whole class meetings. Again, you're trying to control the process, not the conversation, so that things are productive and people feel free to speak. How do you provide structure? Well, anytime students come in prepared to write, take a quiz, you can call it a quiz, you can call it writing, whatever you want to do, that they come in and you have them write something. And I've seen this I've done a lot of visiting of classes. I've seen it in high school, middle school, grade school. Students do a little writing and they're prepared and they want to share what they've written about. So it usually works to have discussion follow writing, but sometimes it works the other way. You want people to discuss, well, what would be some ideas that you could write about a story if you want them to be writing, for example. You can use structure, you can review a test, either in small groups or in the whole class. You can give students a problem activity to complete. You can walk them through a team activity like Think, Pair, Share that we've talked about in some of our other presentations. Big thing, make a rule for yourself and for the students and really explain it and get them to talk about it. Why don't we want to, it's easy to criticize. Why don't we want to have criticism? Even if you're having people read and critique and edit, you always want to have students focus on, okay, it's okay. And we want to ask everybody, what could you do to improve something, but not to criticize, well, you did this wrong, or this is bad, or things of this sort. Also, you want to make a rule, give students a right to pass, particularly in the large group. If a student doesn't have anything to say, you don't put them on the spot, just let them say, I pass. They're still speaking, they're still participating in the conversation. And so it's all good. It's fine to do that. So always give students a right to pass. What about monopolizing? I don't know about you, but whenever I've done class conversations for the whole class, it's hard to prevent some students from monopolizing. So there's some ways around this. One is use round robin, where everybody gets a turn. You can do that in the whole class or in the small groups. You can do think, pair, share in the small groups. You can call on students systematically but unpredictably. That means that students aren't sure when you're going to call on them, so they don't fall asleep while you're waiting for you to get around to them, because they don't know when you're going to call. And you're going to do it systematically so that you don't accidentally not call on somebody. And I've had teachers say, oh, gee, the end of the semester came and I noticed this one student who was in the back was actually, we have a cabinet in our room, and he was always to the one side of that cabinet, so it was hard to see him. So I never called on him. It was letting the end semester came and I hadn't called on him. Use a circle if at all possible for whole class conversations. As Glasser liked to point out, there's a reason we sit around a table at dinner time. It's because it makes it easy to see each other and have a conversation. So when do we want to do these conversations? Well, one of the things is you can use this as an augmentation to direct instruction. And as you remember, direct instruction is not presentation, it's rather presentation plus guided and independent practice and monitoring comprehension. So for guided and independent practice, you can have people practice independently and then share, or you can have them practice in small groups, and you can monitor comprehension by floating around and watching what they're doing in small groups. And maybe these are only going to be for a couple minutes. And then you can have people share a few things with the group as a whole. You don't have to have everybody in the class share. And again, this is something I learned from Sid Simon and attending other kinds of presentations showing us how to do by getting us involved with it as adult teachers. So when to use this? You can use this as a formative experience where students share prior experience of what they already know as you're getting started on a topic. And what you'll find is, which is really amazing, is some student will already know a lot of the things that you want to present. So instead of presenting them, if you can ask a question, they'll present a lot of things that you were going to say, and then you only need to say the things that they haven't already shared through your questions. You can do the same thing in summing up. What did we learn today? What did we learn on this topic? What did we learn from the reading that we did? And so on. Anytime students have read or written or watched or listened, they're prepared to say something. You can use content conversations to practice the big ideas. And again, this is something you only want students to practice what they don't know, what students are having a problem with. No point practicing what people already know. Practice what people don't know. And this is why monitoring comprehension is so important, and having them write, turn things in. You don't necessarily have to give it a grade, but it's a little more work. But if they just write a couple sentences even, and you take a look at that, you can go through it very quickly and figure out what people aren't getting. You can also have problem conversations where anytime you're going to give them an assignment, there's going to be some kind of a product or a performance, even if it's an exam or a project, where there's going to be decisions that they need to make. And you can have them discuss solving some of those problems, either in a large group discussion or individual small groups, and then sharing what the individual groups came up with. Okay, summarizing. Again, emphasizing the big thing is using conversation to have students practice big ideas and practice key skills, particularly practice using the vocabulary, the concepts, and developing the fund of knowledge. So when it comes to reading and writing, they're going to be better able to read and understand. And this is true even of the better students. And then finally, you're doing class building through this, which is going to help everything in the class. You're going to have more time on task because students are willing to pay attention and cooperate. When you do speaking, reading, and writing, skills in each area are going to reinforce the others. Then finally, keeping in mind the 3 types of conversation: content, sharing, and problem solving. The big thing is don't overthink it. You'll learn by doing it over and over. As Glasser said, the teacher said, show us how to do it. And it's like, I couldn't do it either. But I did it over and over and I learned how. And I put students in a circle and it's like, hey, I learned to do it and it worked. And he became an expert at it. So nothing here is you have to do it this way. These are things I would say there are many choices, many ways of doing this. Take what resonates with you and you decide how it works. And then finally, if you'd like a free chapter and about what all of this, how this information all fits together, write to me at rmartin@truman.com and I'll send you a free chapter. And the book's available from Amazon and also from the publisher. Okay, so we will stop sharing now.
Well, thank you, Robert. That was very informative. I really appreciated at the very beginning about why conversations and realizing that we never know what the home life is with someone else. And so as you can begin to have that conversation, they may know about speaking, but not so much about reading and writing. And anyway, the way that you introduced that, I thought that was just beautiful, how it brought it together in such a clear way. You want to go ahead and put that down completely? There
Right,
you go.
okay, I stopped sharing.
Yeah.
And there we go. Yeah, good. Yeah.
Yeah. And how that you bring people into the conversation. And one of the things that you had there was think, pair, share. Would you elaborate on that?
Okay, yeah, sure. That's a very easy structure that we've talked about before, where you give students a little brief something to write about, and they write for a minute, and then they share. They pair up in pairs too, and share with each other what they wrote. And then you pick one of those people and ask them to share what came up in their conversation. And you can do everybody, or you can just do a few people each time.
Yeah.
And this goes very quickly. You can do this all in about 2-3 minutes. So it actually augments the lesson rather than gets in the way. These things are all very, very short. And I want to emphasize that. So they are actually building on what you're doing in your lesson. They're not detracting from it.
Right. And there at the very end, you talked about content. We'll know what we're talking about. And then sharing is in some ideas that others may come up with. And then problem solving.
Right. And I think particularly the sharing you can have a time once a week where you can have a class meeting where people can share whatever concerns they want to bring up. For example, on a Friday, near the end of class, near the end of the day, people's attention are on the weekend, and you can take 10 minutes and invite people to share any concerns they might have, or any happy things they want to, whatever they'd like to share. So As you get to know students better through their personal concerns and interests, that helps you make better decisions about how to interact with them, and also how to create examples within the lesson that are going to make sense to your students.
Right. And I was seeing you as the teacher was primarily there to fill in the blanks and or to have meaningful questions that she could draw the information out for the
Right.
students.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's quite amazing. Yeah. If you ask questions, the students will say a lot of the things that you were going to present. And then
Right.
you can just present what they left out. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Robert, we thank you very, very much for being here. And we'll go ahead and close out today. And those that are here have the opportunity to ask questions and make comments. And so thank you for tuning in and watching this later also.